Welcome back to another edition of FIA here on NNPA and Black Press USA. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas. Today's guest is a podcast host, a motivational speaker, entrepreneur, actor, and his name is Ray Leonard Jr. If that name sounds familiar, yeah, that's because he is the son of the boxing legend, Sugar Ray Leonard. Ray, thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
This is definitely exciting.
Oh, it's always good to talk to especially folks from my hometown from the DMV. So, I can't complain. I miss being back home, living out here in California now. So, but it's great to be on. So thank you for having me.
Ray, could you send some of that California sunshine over here? Today is freezing. Well, yesterday was colder, but we need some of that.
It is gloomy out here today.
Okay.
I've gotten really thin skin now, and it's like 65 degrees out here and overcast. So that's cold now.
Okay. All right. So then we're kind of similar temperature wise today only. So listen, how was it growing up being a child of a legend, sports legend that is beloved in all arenas?
Well, you know what? It was so unexpected. None of us had any kind of idea or blueprint of how to deal with it. My mother was 15. My father was 16 when I was born in Palmer Park, Maryland. And, to meager means, and we didn't really have much. And all of a sudden, in 1976, I was 3 years old. My father wins the Olympic gold medal, and people start to know who we are. And it was just a weird kind of conversation, that, you went from nobody to somebody. And then a few years later, he wins a world championship. I'm on this 7-Up commercial that people think I'm still 7 years old now. And, we start going through life, and it was just really, an experience that I could never, imagine, because it was my life. I didn't know any different. I didn't know that anybody else had a different experience. And as we went through and we learned, got to meet so many amazing people from all over the world. I got to travel and see, and experiences that normal people that were from my area would never have experienced. So it opened my eyes to so much more. And it let me know that I was just bigger than my block.
Wow, that's so important. That's one of the things that I think a lot of people are during this COVID period where we've been locked down, and it just made you really think about yourself and how you are just one part of a bigger picture. We're here in the US, but what happens over in Europe can affect you right here at home. So now you have brothers and sisters, right?
Yeah. I have a brother who's 36. And then I have a brother that's 22 and a sister that's 24. There's four of us now.
Now I know that you're a two. I know that you're a two-sport division collegiate athlete, but did you or anyone else in your family box?
Well, of course, I'm the namesake, so I'm Ray Jr. So they expected me to box. So they put me in the ring at an early age, and I was actually pretty good at boxing. But it wasn't my passion. I was in there doing it because I had an anger issue. So when I got into the ring, my first time they put me in the ring, I think I was 6 or 7 years old, and I fought this guy that was like 10. And I'm in there, and he's taller than me, way taller than me, and he's putting his hand on my head, and I can't hit him. So I get so mad, I go back to my corner, and I bite my trainer's finger because when he took my mouthpiece out, because I was just so mad. And so I rushed out, and I'm trying to get this guy. And he said, well, you need to have a little bit more relaxation when you're actually boxing. You can't just fight out of anger. And then I got hit in the nose, and I said, I don't like this. Boxing wasn't my thing, but I was a two-sport athlete. I was a Division I athlete in college. I played football and ran track and field at Ohio University. I did my own little thing in sports, and we're all athletic.
So listen, there has to be some heavy pressure on a namesake, right? To do boxing. So was that a difficult conversation to have with your parents whenever you had it?
There was never really a whole lot of pressure for me to box. I mean, it was pressure from outside people that wanted to see that. They wanted to see the legacy continue from that standpoint. But for me, I had a different mentality. My thing was to figure out how the process works, how the business works. That's what I wanted to know. I didn't want to just see, because I saw, so many other fighters that came up that, ended up broke. They didn't have anything, and they put their lives on the line and gave their whole livelihood away to the sport, and the sport didn't love them back.
Mhm.
So, from my standpoint, I was like, okay, let me figure out how the business works, and maybe that may be a space that I want to work in. But yeah, I mean, it was. I love the sport of boxing. I grew up around it. I trained in it. But it was never something that was like my passion to do.
Now, Ray, you said that you had anger issues. You were 6. What could your father is like the Superman of Superman for all African Americans and for others as well. What could you be angry at
You
or
know,
about? Hindsight,
really,
anyway.
I really didn't know at the time,
Okay,
but
sure.
I was angry because I knew the responsibility that we had, and that I knew from being a black family that was in the limelight, the pressure that we had on to be exceptional and not let the community down, because there wasn't really a whole lot of role models, especially black families during that time, especially in
Hmm.
sports. So that was kind of one of the things that, I knew that I had to speak a certain way. I had to act a certain way. I had to dress a certain way. And I guess that, to me, because I was in such a bubble, was part of my anger at the time.
Now, I'm going to ask you this question because I'm sure you're keeping up what's happening around the world. Growing up in Palmer Park here in Maryland, I think at some point you may have moved, obviously, to Montgomery or Rockville, you and your family. But so hearing about police stopping young black males, is that something you've ever experienced?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it's funny. I tell this story. It was when I had it happen to me before, because I grew up in I was born in Palmer Park. Then we moved to Greenbelt and Glen Arden, all the way up to Potomac, Maryland.
Hmm.
And I ended up, after during college, I went back and forth to Atlanta, where my mother was living. And at 16, we drove down to Daytona for spring break during high school, and we had to come back through a little town called Dothan, Alabama, on the way back. And I had a BMW, and you think a young black man with a BMW. I'm driving through this southern town in Alabama, and I get pulled over. I have my buddies in the car. I get pulled over. It's dark at night in this little town, and my mother and father had always had the conversation with me: keep your hands on the wheel, speak the right way, do not make any
Back
sudden.
then, they told you that.
Absolutely, it's been the conversation in our community forever. For some reason, right now it's out there that people know the conversation has been happening, but it's been happening, and even with me, and even with the success of my father and our family at that time, it was still the conversation. So I get pulled over. The car is hot because I'm driving from Florida up to Atlanta. They pulled me over. I wasn't speeding because I knew not to speed during that time. But they saw the car, and was very angry. Took me out of the car, put my face on the hot hood of the car, and I'm trying not to flinch, but my face is burning on the car. So I flinch back. They take me down. They throw me on the ground and put the guns to my head. And that was
What?
one of the times I didn't think I was going to make it back. I was scared to death. Told my mother, called her, and that was just one of the moments. They ran my license and saw the name. So it can happen to anybody. When they saw the name and ran my license, I was able to be let go. But that was a circumstance that may not have happened to someone else.
So, when you hear about these stories, you hear about the tragedies, what are your thoughts about police reform and what you think really could make things better to bridge this gap between law enforcement and communities of color?
Well, I mean, it's been very disturbing to see some of these situations happen. I have two boys myself. My son Jalen is 18, and my son Devin is 14. And I still fear for them when they go out, because you never know. And I'm not saying this is about all officers, but there are some bad apples out there, and some folks that are bystanders that don't do what they're supposed to do. And it's a shame that we had to have this uprising to get more knowledge about what's happening in the community. So, what I see as far as a reform standpoint is that we need to have community based policing. people that understand what's going on in their community. Because, like I said earlier, I was talking to a friend. I said, if I'm a cop from Beverly Hills and I had a different experience, when I go into Compton or Inglewood, there's going to be a different thought process for me, you know. And so every single one has to have some kind of understanding of the community that you're working in. And I think that that's part of the problem, and then there's this imminent fear sometimes into from officers of different colors or different backgrounds with the black community. And I don't understand why it's there, whether it's been trained over these years, but sometimes there's a fear because the reaction is much different if it was somebody different, from a different background.
What conversations have you had with your sons prior to
Uh,
these recent murders that have made headlines seemingly every other day?
so for me and my sons, I have the conversation of don't give them a reason, any kind of reason to react. I said, I'd rather you, be able to come home and we address it after that than you not come home. Then you not, make any sudden movements. For you not to argue, just comply and come home safe, and we'll deal with it another day. So it's sad that we have to have that conversation, but that's the conversation I have with my boys.
Wow. Wow. I appreciate you sharing that with us. It's just a conversation that continuously is happening now. And as we see, the White House and Congress hopefully going to address police reform, and knowing that you had, sons, I just wanted to find out what you say to your children in regards to something like this. And I can't imagine what it's like having your child at 18 go out there. I mean, we always worry about our kids, but at 18, you're probably even more so. I don't know if he's tall or not, but all those factors definitely obviously can to make a world of a difference. You are also the co-founder of Launch Team Consulting and the CEO of Leonard Sports Entertainment, right?
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us about that?
Yes. So, no, Leonard Sports and Entertainment was my first company I started.
Okay.
When I went to college, that was basically I was the first person in my college in my family ever to go to college. So that was my gold medal. For me to go to college and graduate, I changed the cycle. It didn't have to be through athletics that we got to a place of success or entertainment, but it was through education. And my daughter graduated from Pepperdine on an academic scholarship.
Oh, wow.
And my son is going to school in Kansas this coming year on a football scholarship. So,
Okay.
we changed the cycle a little bit there. But, with my company, I didn't have any other thought process because it was never a conversation about going to college in my family. It was like, okay, here we're going to do this athletically, sports. And when I got to college, I said, oh, you know what? Maybe there's another opportunity. I got a degree in sports management, got my NFL license, got my NBA license as an agent, MLB license as an agent, and started a sports management company. And that company, built to 22 athletes I was representing. When I was 26, I sold my company. And then I just revamped it a few years ago into just the basic consulting space to do consulting in the sports world. I love it. Always going to have my foot in the sports world. I was born into it. I love it. And I know the space very well. Before Launch Team Consulting, my partner, Dr. Joy Wright, is a master's of psychology and organizational development. And we started the company together. It just happened out of the blue, basically.
Mm-hmm.
She was a Navy veteran. She was one of the first women to integrate fighter jets and aircraft carriers for the Navy. And she asked me to come down and speak to the Navy officers, and I came down and started speaking. And they asked me to come back the week after, then the week after, and it turned into a business where we train on diversity and inclusion. We train on leadership. We train on sexual assault, destructive behaviors, human resources issues, and all those type of things. So it's been a fulfilling thing, and that's kind of what spawned my motivational speaking career too.
How did that connection go with you training people about diversity? I mean, I can understand you doing sports and talking about, the paperwork and the contract and mentally prepared. How did that connection come in with you actually teaching people about this diversity before people were talking about diversity?
Well, because it's a part of my life. I when I grew up until seventh grade, every school I went to, there were no kids that were a different color than me. In
Okay.
PC County, all the schools I went to, from Phyllis E. Williams Elementary School, it was no kids really that were a different color than me. And
Mm.
then all during that time, I'm flying across the world. I'm meeting the Queen of England. I'm talking to Nelson Mandela. I'm having different experiences. I'm seeing kids from Africa, from Italy, from different backgrounds, and it made me appreciate the different cultures and different people, and saw the similarities of everybody in that space. And so when I'm having a conversation about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'm talking about, do you want to actually have a solution, or do you want to put a Band-Aid on it?
Mm.
Because for so many years, I saw people and saw organizations that just say, here, I need to check this box. I don't really want to solve this thing because it's going to cause more conflict if I try to solve it.
Mm.
It's uncomfortable. But uncomfortable conversations are what we need to have to move forward, and to understand that, we are better when we have people of different thoughts and different backgrounds in our organization.
I think that is really exciting. For a person who grew up in Europe and came to the States, I think that is so important when you see yourself outside of I like to say, the 10 blocks that you grew up in. It's just amazing to see other people and to be able to relate and understand things versus just seeing something on television and not having the experience with them. So I'm sure you've traveled, as you stated, meeting the Queen. Are you still doing this, right?
Yeah, well, until the COVID situation happened,
Of course, yes.
I was traveling quite a bit. The year before, I went to the military bases in Bahrain, Greece, Italy, Spain, Japan, all over, and it was such a fulfilling thing to me, because I'm basically out there telling my story,
Mhm.
telling about my life, and which I thought was pretty insignificant, just because I lived it and said, this is my life. But then when you hear people to say, something that you said today, changed my thought process. It changed the way I was going to, my outlook. I didn't want to kill myself because of what you said to me today. And
Wow.
so it's much more of a passion of mine than anything else, to be out and speaking to other people, to say, here, I went through this and you're not alone.
You talked also about initially you being in sports management. What do you see as some of the biggest issues that some of these athletes have when you hear about them making these huge amounts of money and then 5, maybe 10 years later, they're homeless, they're penniless? Were you instrumental when you were doing your practice with sports management? Were you instrumental about teaching them? Because anyone given a large lump of money like that, and probably people around them that say yes to everything, can quickly be taken advantage of.
Yeah, probably to a fault. I was so uh, dead set on making sure that the people that I represented had the education and knowledge and weren't taken advantage of. When I came out of college, it was 1996, and that was when the movie Jerry Maguire came out. And Lee Steinberg was a guy I looked up to, and I've been have conversations with. And I said, show me the money. Okay, here's something great. And you have love stories, and everything else happens, and then you do right by the athlete, and it's perfect. Everything looks beautiful at the end and shiny, but that's not the way it happens. And it's hard to take someone that has never had this kind of success, and you give them that success, and they say,
Mhm.
okay, here, you need to incrementally pay yourself first. You need to take care of this first. You need to understand your tax liabilities, all these different things, especially when you're young, to have that conversation. But that was a conversation I had. Tried to put good people around them, and make sure that they understand that they are a business. When you look at yourself as a business, you understand your worth a little bit better. And when you understand your worth, you can see the wealth. Because if you don't understand your worth, you're not going to see the wealth. And the wealth is not just from a financial standpoint. It's from your spiritual, from your mental, from your relationship wise. You got to understand that all those things are part of your wealth. And if you don't take care of one section of it, then it's going to be hard to keep everything together.
Ray, did your father, Sugar Ray Leonard, talk to you about these things? Money management, just savings? Was there any discussion like that
Rarely, not really.
at the
Because
dinner table?
if you think about it, he was only 16 years older than me. So he was learning as he went as well. I mean, we've had these conversations later on in his career, but early on, I mean, it was just, we were just trying to figure out how to move forward. as a family, and we were just trying to figure out how to, how to keep that image up. And everything that went on behind the scenes, was different than what we were projecting. So we were trying to figure it out and learn as we went. And I mean, that was the big thing. And my father, I mean, he's put as, I'm so proud of him, of all the things that he's accomplished and he's moved forward and things that he's doing now. We have different conversations now. I mean, as you grow as people, as adults, you grow as people, and we have a very different conversation than it was when I was growing up.
So I'm sure this is a great background discussion when you have with other people, that you can say, listen, my father is the greatest, one of the greatest. And, here are the things that I went through. What are questions people ask you when they get an opportunity to talk to you about something, these subjects that we talk about, diversity and just dealing with stress and pressure?
So the first thing they want to ask is what was it like? Your first question.
Right. I had to
What
know.
was it like? And I always say, you know what, it was great in some standpoints. It was tough in some standpoints. The great thing is that I got to play basketball against Michael Jordan when I was 12 years old, and I beat him.
Oh, okay. Now that's like a double whammy there.
We were playing to 4. And he gave me the ball first, and I threw the ball up in the air and it went in. And then he made the shot, and then the second shot, I just threw it up again, and somehow it went in. I said, I'm not playing you no more. I'm done. So I beat Michael Jordan basketball. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
But I got to dance on stage, hang out with Michael Jackson. I mean, meet some of the greatest people. The experiences were awesome. But then on the other side, I had death threats. I had the Ku Klux Klan trying to kidnap me. I had to have a bodyguard that was 6'6", 365 pounds, follow me around all through school because of the death threats and things like that. And my whole life was, people jumping over the fence, taking pictures. I mean, so it was different. I think it's a once in a lifetime experience. But that's one of the things that they ask me all the time. It's just like, what was the experience like? That's the first thing. And then, the different questions is how are you moving forward differently? How are you raising your family? I mean, I have 4 kids as well. My daughter's 26. She's a marketing executive and lives in New York and doing really well. I said, thank God for her that she set the bar high. So her brothers and sister, they want to follow and try to do that same thing. So my legacy and my worth is based upon, what I leave behind. And so when I had the conversation, my grandfather told me a long time, when you know better, you do better. And that's kind of my motto. And that's how I want to live my life when it comes back, that someone said that I made a difference in this world.
So how do you go about making friends or keeping friends with a 360-pound bodyguard always with you, and the heavy weight, I assume, of hearing that someone that you don't know, but they know you, wants to do harm to you?
It was scary. It was scary back then. I think I isolated myself mentally, for a long time. I lived in a shell. I wrote an article when I was like 14 years old called The Hollow Man, because I felt like I really, inside, I really wasn't, spiritually, I didn't have anything else that was moving forward. I was basically moving, just kind of as a robot for a long time in my life. And to have those things happen, and to hold in so much, trauma and issues that I was going through, it was tough. It was tough to deal because my identity was based upon my family. It wasn't based upon anything that I was doing. So it took me a long time to try to figure out who was Ray Leonard Jr., not just Ray, Sugar Ray's son.
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure that out, and it took some soul searching. It took some trial and error. I never wanted to paint it as a situation where I had the perfect life and I was doing all the right things, because I wasn't. And I'm still, figuring it out to this day. And I think that's the blessing, is that when you understand that you're a work in progress, you can understand your wealth and understand your worth, and want to be somebody that contributes back to the world. So, when I look back on it, I enjoy the journey, and I'm still enjoying the journey. And the questions that people ask me, I mean, for the most part, I mean, especially my folks from the DMV, I mean, they always show love. They
Yes, indeed.
for a long time, and I think that In fact, I've never carried myself as someone that's bigger than, and um, I'm a humble person, and I just want to be able to take care of my family, leave a good mark on the world and help others.
So before I move on this, but can you just tell us, how did your parents, or did they tell you about this threat? I can't imagine a parent having to say that and getting a bodyguard. How were you told about that? Or there just one day appeared a bodyguard and you kind of figured things out?
Yeah, I mean, so early on, um, uh, they wouldn't say directly to me, exactly what was going on. But you hear the conversations around the table. You parents don't think kids hear what's actually going on or can't sense the energy. But yeah,
Right.
you can definitely sense the energy. There was a situation, back then we didn't have cell phones, but phone calls came to the house or people were outside of the house. And I remember one time coming home from school, and there was a lady sitting in my kitchen at home. And I was like,
Okay.
I don't know who the heck you are. And she said, no, this is my house. And, the bodyguard finally came back and called the police. But she would stand outside all the time. And then when you had just different people just jumping the fence and different things, there was, really scary moments. So, I mean, I knew what was going on. Uh,
Hmm.
but one of the biggest times were when we were in New Orleans for my father was fighting a guy named Ayub Kalule, and outside of the venue, there's a white truck that pulled up, and they were trying to pull me into the car, to the van.
What?
So I kicked and screamed and got out of there. But that shows you that yeah, you are a target. You are a target.
Wow. Had no idea. Are you a little bit amazed when people, meet you, right? And they know your famous father, and they just have this vision of what your life was like. And you're like, man, let me tell you, it's not all what you think. I mean, just think about that, right? There's no one that would think all the things that you just told us in these few minutes of this interview.
Yeah. You know, it's natural for people to wonder, and I'm blessed that people actually want to know about my life, but know what it's like. And for me, what was being able to give the positive image and say, here, you can do this, you can be here. Just because we're here doesn't mean that you don't have this opportunity. But yeah, I mean, there is that false thought process that um, everything was perfect in your life, and I wish I had your life. I said, you don't really know anybody's life until you walk a mile in their shoes, until you see what's going on. I mean, even now today in this internet, Instagram famous kind of space, that people put the best of themselves always out there all the time. And I think it's a false information, a false thought process for people to think that just because a person has these material things, that their life is better than yours. Their life may not. I've seen so many people that are famous celebrities that live an unfulfilled life, that are unhappy, have everything. What good is a man to gain the world and lose his soul in the process? I mean, that is definitely out there. And so for me, it's from the deeds and actions, and to let people know here. I mean, I talk about mental health and the struggles I had with mental health issues, and I put that out there because I don't want anybody to struggle and say, um, I'm not I'm not living your life. I'm not this successful, so my life is worthless. We all have amazing lives. We're gonna have our struggles, ups and downs, but God made us all with our independent fingerprint for a reason, because we're meant to only live our own special life. Nobody's life is gonna be the same.
I can see why people bring you all across the world to speak, and why you are a highly coveted motivational speaker. We have a number of people who have questions for you. So I'm going to let our producer, Norman Rich, pull up a couple of questions because I want to make sure I get the answer. Emilio, Ray, the first time I remember seeing you was when you did the 7-Up commercial years ago with your dad and Roberto Duran and his son. Okay, I
Yes,
didn't see that commercial
yes,
clearly.
yes. Hey,
Thank
hey,
you,
man,
Emilio.
thank you for asking, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, that was hilarious. And we did the first 7-Up commercial when I was about 7 years old, and I didn't want to do the commercial. I was like, I don't want to be on TV. I don't want
What?
people to know my name. And my father had to bribe me, and he bought me a three-wheel motorcycle to do the commercial.
Instant.
That's inside knowledge that you guys know now.
Wow.
He had to buy it. He had to buy me a three-wheel motorcycle. I didn't understand residuals then. I didn't understand that you can make more
Uh-oh.
money from a commercial, but I learned it as I went along. But yeah, I loved it. And then we did a second iteration of the commercial because it was so popular. ESPN had it ranked as the 24th best sports commercial of all time. And we did one with Roberto Duran and his son. And I'm actually, doing some work with Roberto Duran's daughter, Irishelle, and
Wow.
Tommy Thurs Jr. and Marvin Hagler Jr. on a project trying to revamp boxing right now. But Duran's son, Roberto Jr., we're friends to this day too. And it was funny because we had to stare each other down in the commercial, but we were just laughing at each other the whole time. So.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And that sounds like that combination that you were just naming right now sounds like a great TV show, a positive one, a great TV show of the children of the greats, right?
Yes.
So Darnell Henderson has a question for you. Why? This is a question many people are saying. Why aren't any of the teams picking up Kaepernick? What are your thoughts about that?
So there are a lot of thoughts on that. And the first one was that he filed a collusion suit against the NFL and he won. So, first and foremost, the NFL is going to protect the shield at any cost. And so when you talk about a collusion suit, you want a collusion suit. They were colluding against this man for not to just keep it 100. And I think that no one wanted to take the backlash of what it would have taken in the beginning to bring him on, even though teams desperately needed a quarterback. But having that on the sideline, I think, was something that most of the organizations said that they didn't even want to be involved in, because at the end of the day, it's about the bottom line. And if you alienate one side of the fence that is not going to buy your tickets or not support your team, then you lose dollars. And they understand green more than they understand black and white.
So is this it? He's done with professional football?
Absolutely, unless he creates a league himself or does something else, I see no way that the NFL allows him back in. I mean, they would probably
Really?
allow
With
someone
all
that.
that's happening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of principle, and I may be on some of the NFL owners' bad list for saying this or letting out some of these things, but it's a matter of principle, and that we're not going to fall to someone that took this kind of stand. They would
Pretty
rather
tragic.
let someone that's accused of domestic violence or accused of murder or something like that back in before they let somebody that took a stance against police brutality, which is a shame.
Wow. I mean, he literally risked his whole career to stand up for those who couldn't stand for themselves. So, okay. You had a comment that came up from one of the viewers here wanting to know if you still rap. What's this about? Are we getting ready to do it? Ready? Do you need a beat? Do we need a beat?
Yeah,
used to rap?
yeah. I still rap. I had a whole time where I have a record, had a
Wait a minute.
single
A
out,
record?
yeah.
I'm about to Google you right. I'm
I
about to search
produced
this
the
right.
music. My group was called the Rebels, Rebelz. And so if you
Oh
look
my.
on YouTube, there's wax that tells you how old it was. They have a
I am
record.
so going to do that.
Both sides. One song was called "Pick It Up." The other song was called "Rough and Rugged." And I produced the song "Pick It Up," and then co-produced the other song of "Rough and Rugged" and wrote the lyrics. So I still do it. I love it.
What?
Had a great time with rapping and doing the music. I still rap and freestyle all the time.
So let me ask you a question. Since you grew up in, I on both sides, like a Fresh Prince of the DMV, right? So so to speak. So what did you rap about?
I rapped about a bunch of different things. I rapped about life. I rapped about conscience issues. I always talk about my life as a movie, and that was the conversation that I had. I was, big fans of Rakim and Nas, Notorious B.I.G.,
Yes.
Tupac, and the reason why I love those rappers because they were visually, visual rappers, and they would open up, and when you heard the words, you can see the story. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just talking about this and that, but it was telling you a whole story, which
Yeah.
I love.
Now, you are a member of a number of organizations. I'm just going to ask you about a couple of them, and will you tell me what you do or what those organizations do? Okay. The first one is Black Owned Institute.
Yeah, so I'm on the board of Black Owned Institute, and basically what it does is provide after school programs with education about African American history. And so
Wow.
when we talk about how we move forward, it's telling everybody, not just the black kids or the white kids, but every kid about the history to understand, why this culture is important. And we get taught, our history in school, and I think some of the history that we're taught in school is revisionary history, and it doesn't actually represent everybody. So I think we all are better off when we understand everyone's history. So when we talk about training, I think we should all learn about Asian American history or Asian history, Native American history. I mean, we should learn about all of our cultures and backgrounds and have these conversations. And I think that will make us better off. So Black Owned Institute is putting that out there to not only empower the young kids, black kids, but also have other kids from different backgrounds understand, the contributions that the African Americans have built and brought to this country.
How about Black Talent Hub? I've never heard of that before.
So that's a new one that's going to be launching pretty
Oh,
soon. And
okay.
when we talk about these organizations that are saying they want to hire a more diverse group of people, and they say they can't find people,
Mm.
so we figure we're going to give them a place where you can find the talent.
I
You're going to
love that.
so you'll have your IT people, you'll have your people that are engineers, you'll have your doctors, you'll have everybody in one place, and you can find them. So there is no excuse. Don't be saying you can't find nobody.
I love that. So wait, how do people get more information about that? Right now, with people being out of work and working from home and people being able to hire you virtually, how can we or get information to people about Black Talent Hub? I love that idea. And
Black
the name.
Talent BlackTalentHub.com is launching on April 26th. And so just go to
You heard it here
BlackTalent.com.
first. Oh, that's great. Oh, wow. Okay, well,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
are some
yeah.
good extra work.
We're very, very, very excited about it. Very, very excited about it. So,
That is interesting. So this is
you know,
something else, another thing I've never heard of. Sim Swim Esports?
Simwin.
Simwin
Simwin.
Esports.
Simwin. I'm on the
Yeah.
advisory board for a company called Simwin Esports, and basically it changes the whole dynamic of what esports is and betting and fantasy sports and esports is something that our community has really not had opportunity to really be involved in,
Okay.
and but it's the future. It's the future of how everything is consumed. I mean, there are scholarships for esports now. A friend of mine, John Cash, is the first adjunct professor to teach esports at Howard University, and there is a major push to have that moving forward. I mean, there's opportunities in different areas. And so, when kids know that here, I don't have to just be an athlete or entertainer. I can go into esports. I can be a doctor. I can do these things, and I can get the same swag and the same bag by doing that I can from being shooting a jump shot. So that's what I promote. And the tech field is something that I love because I wanted to be a computer scientist when I went to college. That was my
Okay.
thing. I love robotics and computer science. And my coach, one of my coaches there, told me that you're playing two sports, you can't handle computer science and play sports. So
Oh,
that's the sports
okay.
management degree.
So you also have, now this is pretty much self-explanatory, but Virtual Fight Unlimited?
Yeah,
Virtual Fights Unlimited.
Virtual Fights Unlimited. So that's the project I'm working on with the other kids of Legends. So with Thomas Hearns Jr., Roberto Duran's daughter, Rochelle, Marvin Hackler Jr., all of us, our fathers fought each other. So we came together and said, let's create something. We talked earlier about so many fighters and people, athletes that end up broke at the end of their career.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that we want to change. We want to give the sport back to the people that put the blood, sweat, and tears into it, and provides similar to a 401k, and bring boxing into the future. So boxing has been so old for so long. It's ruled by 85-year-old men. So at some point it has to change, and at some point it has to be more accessible to more people. So when you look at the landscape of boxing and you see YouTuber like Jake Paul coming out and doing bigger numbers than
Wow.
the top championship fighters, something has got to change. And because the audience is changing and the audience wants something different. So that's what we're trying to do.
That is going to be huge. Now, how can people get more information about that? I'm sure they're going to love to know. Virtual Fights Unlimited.
Yes. And so, I mean, everything, to keep it really simple, everything is on my website, RayLeonardJr.com. I'll post updates there. On my social medias at Ray Leonard Jr. So you don't have to go too far to find anything. I learned that to streamline all the information of where you want things to go. So
Yes.
that's it. You go to RayLeonardJr.com. You're going to find everything you need to find.
What are your thoughts about sports betting in general? Are you a big fan of it, or you could care less? It's changed so much now that everyone's able to do it.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think it's made some people a lot of money and being able to take care of their families, and it's also ruined some people, ruined some families. But I think in a capitalist society, that you have the opportunity to wager and do what you need to do on whatever side. So, I'm a fan of it. I grew up in spent a lot of time. These are my dogs. I spent a lot of time in Las Vegas. So basically grew up there as my third home. So Caesar's Palace, I ran around there so many times.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, it's sports betting. I mean, it's a part of the fabric of the game, and I think anything that presents additional engagement is good to have.
Now you have a book, either it's coming out or it's already been released. It's this month, right? When you know better, you do better.
Yeah, that it's been my project and my thorn in my side that I've been trying to push this thing out. And every time I get to a point where I'm getting ready to release it or talk with the publishers about here, let's make it happen. And I say, okay, it's not ready yet. And I keep going back because I want my first book. I want it to be something that's super impactful, and I want it to be right. But sometimes I think I'm overthinking myself. And my wife said, if I don't get this book out ASAP, I'm going to be sleeping in the garage. So it's coming out soon because it's definitely needed. It is a guide for youth, about how to deal with situations of stress, how to deal with, how to talk with people, how to deal with bullying, all these major things. And I had so many major great contributors, celebrity contributors, from Hazel Ortega, from my father, from Dr. Jim Welter, the first women's NFL coach. So many people contributed. My buddy, Prince Daniel Jr., who played with the Baltimore Ravens, he contributed to the book, and he talks about meditation and taking stress away. And so it's such a powerful book. I just wanted to do it justice, and it's been on me. It's coming out. It's coming out.
Okay. No pressure, no rush. I said, I heard about it, and I said, well, let me ask him. He's going to be on the show tonight. If you're just tuning in now, you are watching NNPA and Black Press USA. Our phenomenal guest is, yes, Ray Leonard Jr. Yeah, the name should sound familiar. This is the son of boxing legend Sugar Ray Leonard, and he's talking to us about all things Ray Leonard Jr. I mean, from his, well, we're going to talk about the podcast, but motivational speaking. He's an actor, he's an entrepreneur. So there's a lot of great things. And I can just hear in how you're talking and how you're reflecting on your life. It just seems like you have a passion to give back to those, to make sure that they don't feel like they're alone if they're in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and all of these things, it seems like a lot. When I start saying here all the things that I'm involved in or things that I've done, it seems like a lot, but it's all in the package of me, and whatever talents I was blessed with from the man or the woman up above, I give them, trying to just give that back in whatever ideation it is, and I'm still a work in progress. I'm still trying to find my journey. Define what it is that I end up doing, and I haven't pigeonholed myself into one thing. The acting is goes into the podcast and goes into music. I'm an entertainer at heart, so I guess that goes with the speaking as well. So that mean in the book, and I mean that's all a part of entertainment. So that's me, and then the giving back is part of what I do with my companies and organizations that I'm a part of.
I think, Ray, it's so important that you mentioned earlier today about mental health and you personally dealing with it. I know that there have been a number of reports over the last couple of months as a result of the pandemic and the coronavirus, people who were in a good space are finding themselves dealing with mental health issues. And those who are dealing with mental health issues are finding themselves even more at, closer to the edge of whether it's being frustrated or angry. So it's really great when we have figures like yourself to put a face to it, because a lot of people that we probably pass with, work with, know, and love are dealing with it probably in silence.
Yeah, and it took a long time, for me to deal with the demons that I had inside, and to see the demons that my parents dealt with, and struggled with for a long time. Because for us, it was fighters. As long as we can deal with silence, if nobody talks about it, nobody knows about it, then it's okay. It was a sign of weakness not to speak about it. But just recently, I mean, it was just, I mean, when I first started, doing the motivational speaking, it just kind of came out because I started talking about my stories, and I would get on stage, and I wasn't, I'm not a trained speaker, so I would just like words my mouth, just start talking stuff, and it led me to some places, and I start talking about things, and I would just, like, man, how did I actually bring this up? I mean, I suppressed so many things to actually talk about. And once I started opening up about it, it was like a big burden was lifted off my back. My friend Shanti Dodds, who was the A&R for a long time for LaFace Records, a good friend of mine. She has an organization called Silence to Shame. Now we always talk about, how do you let go? How do you open up? How do you get past the embarrassment of saying that I'm not strong, or I don't think I'm this strong, or saying because you're struggling with something mentally that you're not strong. How do you get over that? And that's one of the things that I wanted to break the barrier on that, especially within the African American community, because we don't
Yes,
talk about that. We don't talk about
yes,
issues
yes,
like
it
that,
is.
and it
Yeah,
just
it's
gets.
exactly. It's a taboo. It's almost a taboo that, if you are a black person or definitely a black male, that's not the type of assistance or something that you would acknowledge publicly or even
Yeah.
to friends.
Right. And I mean, I do it on my Instagram, on my social media. If I'm having a bad day, I'll let
Yeah.
the people that follow me, I'll let them know. And some days I just say, here, somebody needed to hear this. I had it on my heart that somebody needed to hear this, and just to know that you're not alone with me, your struggles. We're human. We're broken people. We're born into sin, and if we don't start to have these conversations, these difficult conversations, we won't ever make any progress.
It's so admirable because, being in the limelight and in the public is as much as it's easy for a person to think it is for you to say that. It's got to be tough because, then with this social media can be brutal. They want to love you one minute and the next minute they're really ready to tear you down. And it's one of those bad days. It can really be a traumatic thing. So it's really great hearing, you talk about mental health and admitting how you deal with it and deal with your emotions, because I'm sure that it definitely makes a difference to anyone who's listening to you that may be having a bad day. And there are many people that I've interviewed here on this show and over the years that say, I just put on a fake face. And then as soon as the lights go down, as soon as the video is over, I'm back in a very negative place. Kania,
Oh,
I'm
hey, I
trying to
gotta say
read.
hey to my family, Kania Anderson.
I was just gonna say that. A little Ray, how are you doing? I'm watching you talking.
I'm still little Ray.
That's so cute.
So James Anderson was one of my father's bodyguards, and he was Muhammad Ali's bodyguard, and his son Jamal played in the NFL. Jamal Anderson with the Dirty Bird for Atlanta Falcons, and then we've all been family for so long. Kania, Zenobia. I mean, all of us, the whole family, Jason, all of us have been family for so long. So they still support me. We support each other. So I just, it's funny that they still call me Little Ray, and I'm bigger than everybody.
I love it. I love it. It says, I hope your dad is esports boxing club video game is in an esports boxing club video game.
Yeah, there's something new that's out, the esports boxing, video game, and yeah, I mean they're trying to sign everybody. They're doing pretty well, but you know we still have some negotiating and conversations to do. So
Sure,
there's
sure.
there's a lot going on in that space, and so
Sure.
yeah.
Who would you like to see get back into the ring? I was surprised with this Tyson and Holyfield, but who would you like to see get back in the ring? Look how you sat back when I said that.
Oh, because it's so many right now. It seems like
Yes.
everybody's coming out of the woodwork to get back in the ring. Because
Yes.
you know, talking to him, I was at Mike Tyson's place a couple weeks ago, and you know, he's trying to get my father and Tommy Hearns back in the ring. And
What?
Sugar
Wait,
Ray
I thought that
Mosley.
was a joke. That's serious?
No, these guys are serious about these conversations. I mean, they're old school boxers. They always think they can still do it. You know, you got Evander Holyfield out here. Oscar De La Hoya is coming back out. You know,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
all these guys. I mean, I wouldn't want to fight when I'm 60
That
or
can be
50.
dangerous though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess no more danger if you're fighting somebody the same age. I guess you know. Yeah,
He
in,
didn't
in a good
right.
situation, but you know the money and just the you know sometimes that's the hardest thing about being famous or having your moment of fame is when it shuts off because it will shut off. People will forget about you. People will no the limelight and hearing it create cheer of the crowd will go away. And if you don't have anything solid, a base that's built upon to move forward, then you won't and you'll always be looking for that cheer of the crowd again. So I enjoy these guys living their life to the best. I want them to stay safe and enjoy it, but yeah,
You're gonna
I
have
mean,
to talk with dad.
I'd
You're gonna
fight
have a
Jake
talk with
Paul.
dad.
I'd fight Jake Paul for $10 million. You know, so,
I am
so I
so
can't say
surprised
anything.
about that. I don't know if that's a setup. I was really surprised about the first fight. I just knew I absolutely called the wrong winner.
Mm,
And I did. I did. I really did. But I enjoy boxing.
yeah.
I remember the Mike Tyson era. It was just crazy because I was like, literally, if I wasn't on time, which I'm normally on time, but I figure for boxing, come on, you've got time. And if you weren't seated, you would miss Mike Tyson knocking somebody out, literally, if you're 5 minutes
He
late.
was so electric, with everything that he did, his personality, his fighting. I've known Mike for over 30 years. His friend, good friend of mine, and his normal personality is so much different than the person he is when he goes to the ring.
Yeah.
So it's funny to see that. I mean, most of these guys like they're the sweetest, nicest guys outside the ring, and then they get into the ring and they turn into a whole different person. So that was a great era.
Now, speaking of sweetest person, I'm sorry, but your dad just seems like I always, I remember him not when he was fighting, but I just see him smiling all the time. And I just can't imagine him hitting somebody in a ring. So he does, I mean, how does that flip over? He just doesn't seem like I'm going to tear you up.
Yeah, no, he flips a switch.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's like any entertainer, that when it's time to perform, the lights come on, you're ready to go, and you prepare for it. Even a lot of these comedians, that I people that I know that they're so humble and quiet when you meet them or you're talking to them, and then they get on stage and they just light up and they're electric. And I guess that's the thing with with some people. I mean, when the lights come on, they're ready to go. And my father, like you would never think you see him around the house. I'm like, this dude, you finna fight. Like, I mean, I did that when I was like about 18 years old. I came back
You
from
didn't
college.
step to him, not
Oh yeah,
today.
I stepped to him hard. I
Are
was
you
like,
kidding me?
I'm
Your
muscular, I'm big.
father?
I just came back from college. I'm like this. I'm like, dude, yeah, I know all your moves. Let's fight. He said, you know what I
No.
do for a living, right? And I was like, no, well, yeah, whatever. But I'm bigger than you. I can take you. We went
No.
downstairs, put the gloves on, got in the ring, and I come out. I rush him. I'm tackling him because I said I can't let him have too much space because he's too can be fast and can't get away. So I try to get him in the ring, and I'm swinging punches, and he's just moving. I'm not even hitting him. I'm like, this is terrible. And then he punches me on my side, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't hurt. But ever had a time when it takes your brain like 5 seconds to catch up with your body?
I
Yeah,
used to do martial arts, so yes.
yeah.
Yes.
All the air went out of my body. I went down, took my gloves off, and that was the end of my boxing career.
I thought, now, you know what I love about that? There's so much that I've learned about you here today, which is what FI is all about. I love the fact because you hear those stories that a young boy will always step to his dad. I, however, never thought that Sugar Ray's son would do that because of knowing who he is. So it's
He's strong.
interesting to know.
He's only like he was like 147 pounds. Like so, I mean, 5'8", 147. He didn't look like he could beat me, but yeah, I guess so.
That is so funny. That is so funny. The Four Kings is my favorite era in boxing. The 80s, Emilio,
Yeah,
Santana.
Amelia, I don't think would ever be another one like that. I mean, that was just a fantastic group of guys that came together, and they were all at the top of their game in different weight classes and end up fighting each other. And it was no excuses, no excuses. And
Was
I wish to see some more of that.
why what happened to boxing? Like it seemed like it like just disappeared. Like when Mike Tyson left, I mean, we had a couple of fights that came out, and I think they were great. But what do you know what happened? Why there's no, I don't know. It just seems like it's gone.
I think what happens with every single one of these sports, and this is just me from a sports consultant thought process, and just a fan of the game, is when you destroy the amateur parts of sports.
Okay.
We don't have the moms and dads and families and communities being able to follow these kids or these youngsters when they're coming up. You lose that fan base. You lose the people that are supporting them. And when you're trying to tell somebody that this guy that I've never heard of, that no one's ever heard of, is 15 or 20 and 0, and he's a champion, and you're gonna have to pay $25 to watch him or $50 to watch him, it takes away a certain part of the audience. And if you're not building up the background or the people that follow them for a certain reason to understand the backstory of why they fight, then you're going to lose a whole generation. And that's what I think boxing has missed for so long. And, the difference is when you see like these YouTubers or Jake Paul is because they built their audience. His audience knows their background. They've seen them skateboard. They've seen them at home. They know who they are. That's why they'll pay $60 to watch them fight. That's the difference. He's
But does
built
that
it.
destroy the fact that, I mean, it's boxing is serious. It's not something you go from a skateboard and hop into a boxing ring. It seems like I really thought it was a joke, and I think most of the world did until he won.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, he's not really fighting anybody that gives him a challenge, first and foremost. He's fighting other people that don't really fight. So
Okay,
I'd like to
that's
see him
fair. That's fair.
fight somebody with a fighter's background. That'll be a different thing. But yeah, I mean, he does have a skill set. So I can't say that he doesn't have a skill set. But yeah, I mean, it's the just traditional boxers, traditional fans of boxing are upset about his success. But
Yes,
uh,
yes, believe me, I know quite a few that have talked about it. Yes,
they
yes.
should be more happy that the eyes are still on boxing, that people are still paying attention to it, than worrying about what he's doing. And if you wanna be the man, go in and beat the man.
Ooh, okay. How about Mayweather? What's going on with him? Is he going to come back anytime soon? Is it done?
Floyd Floyd is a marketing genius. He,
Yes.
he he saw himself as Pretty Boy Floyd when he started out, and he was emulating my father. I think pretty much he was trying to be the good guy, and he wasn't getting the paydays from being the good guy. And then he became Money Mayweather and changed his persona up because he said, if I'll make more money if people hate me because they want to see me lose, and they'll pay more
Oh,
money to see me lose. And
wow.
that's where he is, and I think he's done a great job with it. He's super talented. And he's going to fight. I think he's supposed to fight Jake Paul's brother, Logan Paul, in Miami in June.
Listen, I heard, but it's not okay. I wanted to ask you since you're a sports fanatic. So, okay. So I just wanted to ask that question. And I think Madison put a comment up there that she's going to share this interview with her son. Madison, I know that a lot of people are going to be looking at this interview. Michelle Madison, I'm going to share this with my son at Madison Martial Arts. He will love this interview. And I'm getting so many texts and dings on my phone right now, loving this conversation with Ray Leonard Jr., the son of boxing legend Sugar Ray Leonard. Listen, you have so much to say. As we close out this wonderful interview, I have to thank you for taking time all the way on the West Coast to share with us here on Black Press USA and NNPA about what you're doing. Would you once again, for people who want to either know about Black Talent Hub, which I absolutely love, the Sim Swim Esports, Win Esports, and Virtual Fight Unlimited, as well as Black Owned Institute. They want to keep up with you and your podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's your podcast name?
my podcast is called Know Better Do Better by Ray
Okay.
Leonard Jr. So the Know Better Do Better, I have it all on my website, rayleonardjr.com. My podcast is basically like when you used to sit and talk to your grandparents. and they tell you the stories tell you about how I got to a certain point, and the stories about when they, grew up, or and I take celebrities, everyday people. I take, people that inspire me, and I want to share their stories because everybody has a story. So, once you know that their story and their path, maybe it helps you to be able to fulfill your own dreams and path. And it's just been a blessing. And I got to thank my kids, my daughter Ariel, my son Jalen, my other son Devin, and my daughter Ryan, and my beautiful wife Stacy for always putting up with me and and dealing with everything else that I do, and all the time it takes away from them sometimes. But I just enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm so blessed with life. And I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about myself, because I don't normally like to talk about me.
And I appreciate you doing that. And that's what this show is really all about, is getting to know behind the scenes of people, and just what you say can really help others get through their day and uplift them. And that seems to be your mantra anyway. So it's really been a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm assuming that people, if they're interested in having you speak for their organization, whether it's virtually or in person, once we get through this pandemic, they can also reach you through the website as well.
Yes, RayLeonardJr.com, or LaunchTeamConsulting.com. Go book me on there. I'm so ready to get back out on the road and stand in front of an audience. I've been doing this virtual speakers. I'll still do those, but I'm ready to get back. I'm double vaccinated, so I'm good to go.
Again, Ray Leonard Jr., thank you so very much. And speaking of thank you again, we want to thank Black Press USA and NNPA, and of course, Concert Connect Talent Booking. Thank you so much, Ray Leonard Jr., for joining us. We look forward to keeping up to date and seeing what you have coming up for us.
Thank you, Taylor. Have a good one.
You're welcome. All right. Well, until next week, God bless and goodbye.
All right. Bye.